lot of you know Oris. Oris does a lot of their steel work. And yeah, from everything we talked to them about, having an accurate estimate and not having a whole bunch of cost overruns and a bunch of surprises at the end, which is not what we want, we felt very confident in Weaver Commercial. And I think the quality of the work that they do is also very good. And so that was, I guess, the main reason that we thought we would go with, we selected Weaver Commercial. Also, there's still a little bit up in the air about the water, about sprinkling the gym, whether we would have our own self-contained system or run a water line down from the water wells just up the road here. So that could, be some difference yet, and I don't know which way is the best way to go yet. So we haven't gotten quite that far. So that's one more thing that we need to kind of look at. I guess the last thing, or one more thing, is when we decide to build the building. I don't even know how much money we have or whatever, but whenever we decide that okay, we want to build now, just to order the building is 6 months, and and then was it permits? Just so from the time we would tell them yes, we're ready to start, it would be a minimum of 6 to 8 months before they could start. Is that right? I think so. Yeah. Now they could potentially start next summer, if everything would line up or whatever. But that's one thing to keep in mind. It is some time out. We can't, oh yeah, let's do this. We have our funding or whatever, and in a month we can start. It's going to take some time before they can get started on it. And we've been working with Tecton on doing the engineering or the site work and all the drawings and the code and all that. And they are not like 80% done or a little bit more, so they still have some work to do as well. So until they get their work done, we would get permits, we would order the building. It could go at least from the time you say go to the time it starts, I would say it would be close to 8 months, maybe, or something like that. Is there anything else that I kind of missed? If they have an overview of the building, we can talk about that a little bit. Okay. That's fine. I guess, so the way it would kind of lay out, they might get it up here, is there would be a carport and an entrance out the front, kind of on the 62 side. And then the foyer and would come in. Mike, would we still come in over here at these doors? And then the gym would lay out that way where the old electric room would be. And the kids' play area, and over there would be the gym. We would have like restrooms about where the restrooms are now, some classrooms, and then there would also be like 4 classrooms upstairs with a junior youth room upstairs. And yeah, the kitchen would be over off of that side too. By the instead of over here, it would be all the way over there on that side of the gym, so you could serve out of the kitchen right into the gym. Looks like he's getting it. So that being said, like there's a with the gym, it would be like the size of a high school gym, with area around the side, like for, to have seats and chairs and stuff around the side. Okay, that's fine. So yes, from the time they would start to the time it would be completed, yeah, is around 8 months. They think that we could maybe, of course, that's something for Steve and the elders to talk about. They told me that we could probably have church here every Sunday, except for a few, maybe 3 or 4 Sundays we would have to maybe find someplace else to worship. But otherwise, they could set up temporary power and things like that to where we could still worship here on Sundays, except for maybe just a few weeks. Yeah, do you, somewhere I think it has, yeah. So over here on this side, you see the carport with the entrances. You would have like a coffee bar and some seating here, and then the restrooms. It doesn't show the upstairs very well there, but yeah, there's 4 classrooms in the upstairs, and 1 classroom is, okay.
Go ahead, click on that, dude. Click on 7. There, that's the second.
Okay. Yes, there you see how the classrooms on the upstairs and they have 1 larger classroom there that we could do for the junior youth. That is the outside of it. So that's kind of an overview of the building. Okay, and the kitchen is all the way on the far right. Yeah, right there. And then you could serve out of the kitchen into the gym. The room right beside the kitchen is just a utility room for storage. And then there's 2 classrooms beside, yeah, right there. I don't know, what's that up there in the back? I can't remember, Mike. Oh, that's the electrical room and stuff. And the way to get upstairs is right there. Dewey, do you see it right beside the 2 classrooms by the men's restroom? Yeah, right there's the stairs to go upstairs. So that's kind of an overview of the building that would fit. Everything would get torn off from the wall right here at the back of the sanctuary. That way would all get tore off, and we would start from right there at that wall. I don't know, is there anything else to? Yes. Yeah, the red part, it all gets demoed.
All right. I think, yeah, Bruce, thank you. Very good feel for it. And probably, I'm guessing a lot of you have looked at this out in the corner too. So hopefully it wasn't brand new. We're going to come back to after we're through the vision plan. We're going to give you time for questions to the building team. So again, keep those in your mind if you're wondering why, how, where, or need part of that explained. The masters in the sound booth can probably take you back to the screen and work you through questions if you have for the building team. Next, we're going to move into the finance part of this. And Ryan, as our elder of finance, has been working hot and heavy with the building team, as well as with Ray and Associates on some financial plans. And so we're going to let him share what he has on the finance part of this.
First of all, thank you, everyone, for coming. I do get to share the fun part, the money. So I'll jump right into this. Current funds, you can get that second slide. We'll start right in there. This is as of this month. Current funds in the bank, that's just our account, is $42,665. Then we have In Everence, we have invested 294,475. And then our CD at CSB Bank has 153,691. So as of today, we have a building fund of 490,831. So almost 500,000. And I did add a little note at the end there. There are some, we did get a final construction plan proposal from Tecton to kind of over their next 6 to 8 week, how that would look if we would move ahead with this to kind of finalize those building plans and work with Weaver Commercial to get it to the point of building. So after that, after once we would move ahead, it would be we would be taking out 28,300 to complete those plans, which would put us at 462,531. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of where we are at as of today. The next slide here shows a little bit of how we got there, how we're doing cash flow wise as a church. For you that don't know, 23% of our offerings are our building fund, which I took this year, January, the first 6 months, to kind of get us an average of where we've been. The first 6 months we got 53,672, which puts us monthly at 8,945. The excess funds from the budget is 44,688. That's been going to the building fund. That's outside of our church budget, whatever's extra. And then additional funds that were just for the building so far this year was 21,000. And then the church auction, obviously you guys know that gets added to the building fund as well. That's a yearly thing we do. And that was approximately 85,000. So I kind of broke it down, monthly, obviously, where all of that is. Again, estimated yearly funds would be 323,900 coming in per year for the building fund, which is based on the numbers above, would be 26,991 per month average. Slide 4 shows a breakdown of our building cost. These numbers we tried to keep pretty safe. Speaking to, like Bruce mentioned, Weaver Commercial is very, from what we've talked to, one of our big things that was very important is how accurate is their estimate, and what are the chances of us going over, all of that. And we have got very good feedback that they are very accurate. And if there are any changes, we know about it. If it's $100, we'll find out. So we are very confident that their quote is very accurate. Obviously, there might be changes or things that we run into that I did plan for some overage. So I felt these numbers are pretty safe. The top one is the proposal from Weaver Commercial, $2,150,000. I did put in a 5% overage of almost 107,500. Again, just putting that in there to be safe. They don't feel like it would be 5% overage. I would hope not. But we wanted to run safe numbers, so that's what that is. The fire suppression, Bruce spoke a little bit. That's still kind of up in the air. There's a couple options on fire suppression. There's obviously city water. This current quote here of 100,000 extra is essentially us putting in a tank out in the parking lot, and that would be sprinkling the new part. So that is, now there's obviously another option on the table of basically trying to fight that in court, and since we're a church, trying to get around fire suppression. But there's some negative tied to that too, of just where we are at capacity-wise and things like that. So that's still a lot of conversation with three things: either putting in the tank, city water, or just simply trying to avoid it. But that is in there currently. The add-on design / changes, that's again just another safe number. If we are making changes, if we want better lights, nicer carpet, I don't know. I'm not on the design team, but I'm just making sure that, again, that if there are changes or add-ons, that we have some allotted for. And this is all, a lot of these last three numbers are very open to change. but we're trying to keep it safe. Again, a commercial kitchen, we had allotted 80,000, and then we figured there's going to be some exterior updates, signage, blacktop, things like that, that we have to redo out in the parking lot and some things like that. So again, just a kind of a number that we threw up there to try to be safe. So yeah, the total projected amount with all that would be $2,688,250. All right, so the last slide is kind of is basically showing what we're proposing. Again, based on that, our estimated cost for the whole project is $2,688,250. We would be proposing 40% down, which is $1,075,300. And our current funds, like I said, are $498,331 prior to the Tecton. With those numbers as of today, the leftover amount to raise to reach the 40% would be $584,469 that we would have to raise. And that would give us a loan amount of $1,612,950. These numbers, again, the terms at the bottom is, I spoke to a local bank just to get kind of current terms. Again, I feel like these terms are safe. Who knows what will happen with our economy and everything that's going on. But I would personally expect the interest rate to come down rather than going up in the next year or two. But these are current terms, are 25 years, 7.5% interest, and 40 down is what we propose, which would give us a monthly payment of $11,919. And the last slide will kind of show us an amortization schedule or calculator with that loan amount of $1,612,950 at 25 years and 7.5% interest. I did tie in a little. If we would put 100,000 extra a year, if we could do that, just what it would do to our amount of time of payment. It would pay off the building in less than 10 years if we could put 100,000 extra each year. And I kind of did that just because of the auction. You know, if this would cash flow without the auction, and we would get that 85 to 100,000 each year in auction funds, what that would do to our payoff. So that is showing a little bit of, the monthly payment and some numbers there that show us where we'd be. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a vision. This will be available, obviously, and as there's questions that come up after, we'll be happy to circle back and talk about this.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Can you take me back to what they would need to raise? So we'll put a pin a little bit into this financial plan. We're going to come back to this as well and give you a time for questions, and Ryan can answer everything he has on the data of how we came to what we're doing. But before we do that, we'll put a pin in a little bit and let Ryan speak into, so before we dig, before the demolition would start, we would be looking for if we go with this proposal, again, that's the if, but if we would go with this, we would look to need to raise another $584,000 on this slide, according to what Ryan said, to make that 40% down. So that's where we brought in Ryan to put a capital campaign team together. And again, their role would not only be to raise this amount, but then to continue through until that loan's finally paid, whether that's 5 years or 10 years or the full length of the 25 years. So his team has a pretty big role to play in this. So Ryan, I think you have a mic already. If you want to just give us a little bit of the vision that, and I know some of your team's here, so if you want to call on any of them, you can too.
Test. Yeah, as far as the team goes that we have, I have currently 5 guys that have committed to being part of the team, and I believe most of them are here. Is that on? There we go. with that, I think with what Ryan was showing us, roughly, we'd have to come up with right around 600,000. Is that correct? And also with the budget that we already have, the income that we had the last year, within a year we'd have 300 already with that. So we would have to come up additionally 300, right? And so the team has kind of some ideas that we were really trying to come up with in the next year of when we want to have some events, what can we work on. We can work off some current events that we already have, like the auction, fall festival, some small things that we want to go off of there. But they have we're very early on in deciding on events, but we have some ideas, some smaller events from here to the end of the year, and the next year we want to have some extra events as well. I think they also mentioned they're going to give us a corner in the church somewhere here that we can maybe have a box of ideas specifically for our team. So if you have any ideas, feel free to add to that. And we'll also have some information on where we're at, what we're doing in the next month as well. Is there anything else that I should be touching base on, Steve or Ryan? I think the biggest thing is I'm confident that we can, there's a lot of questions on when and how quickly we could come up with that money. I think the biggest thing is it takes more than just 5 people to come up with that. It takes a whole church. So I think if we have the whole church behind us, it'll take us all. And I think we can, and with also God's blessing on this, I think anything's possible. So that's why I think my team and our team is very excited to be a part of it, but also additionally knowing that we have your support and God's blessing on it.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We're going to open that up for question and answers in a little bit as well. But just a real quick question on the roll call. Have you all put your names down? If not, if it's stuck at you, keep passing it on to the next person, and try to make sure it gets to the end of the line. And if you have that roll call, does anyone have it on this side? Anyone have the roll call? Joel has it. They have both. Okay, so it's all good. All right. So we're going to go into question and answer time. The first thing that we really just want to open it up is any questions on the building itself. You heard Bruce speak. Again, I know a lot of you, I've seen you back there studying the prints in a better fashion back there. So just we want to give some time for questions. So questions to Bruce and his team concerning the building. Don't be shy if you have a question. One of the two, there's 2 mics up here that work, so we'll give you a mic if you need. Good question. I think that would go more into, I think I noted right at the beginning that the pastoral team hasn't really been part of this decision process other than myself as chairing the elder board. So that question will go more into ministry, which will be the pastoral team's vision. We've had some conversations of that already, of what that all looks like, whether it's added sports ministries, and obviously there's a lot of openness for, whether it's conventions or conferences, or there's a lot of added option to that. Probably one of the biggest things initially that is a real bright light is our kids ministry. You don't have to look far to ask Amy or Zonia that they become quite frustrated with the limitations they have now. So I think, short version answer, there's some of that conversation already, but it would definitely fall more into the ministry leaders outside of these committees up here. Does that make sense? Okay. Good question. Anybody else?
Yeah, that is tearing everything away and hauling it to Kimball's. Now, if you let them bury it on your farm, it's going to be cheaper.
I think I saw him raising his hand. He's in. Du bist du einig?
But yeah, I think they had figured, a couple weeks anyway, to tear it all down. Okay, they'd have to do some asbestos testing, but they had all that figured in. But yeah, it was taking everything out front to the landfill.
And I'm guessing if somebody wants to buy that kitchenette cabinet for $5,000, they'd be more welcome to it. So, is that right, Bruce? I'm just throwing that out there.
If you want to buy the front, you can buy it.
Good question, Lester. Any others? Did that answer the question, Lester? All right. Any others?
So, outside of the possibilities of fundraising and events and whatever you guys are going to do, which is great, you have the members here, right? You have, I don't know how many members, a couple hundred members. How much are you guys expecting of the people that are non-committed members of the church compared to the members of the church? Because obviously it's going to be voted in, whatever. But then you have non-members of the church that are in. How to like convince or to come and say, hey, do we have a plan on how to really bring them in outside of the fundraising options? Because again, members, no problem. I think members can get behind something like, hey, let's do this, let's do the, they're going to be full on board, I believe. But when you talk about non-members, that's the other half of the church. Has that been talked about? Like, man, how do we get our people that maybe are half committed or not members to really see the vision here and really go after it, even financially?
I'll speak a little bit into that, and then I'll open it up for either of the Ryans if they want an answer. That sounds funny, either of the Ryans. But anyway, so real quickly, I think, first of all, we haven't given Ryan Yotzi and his team, we haven't necessarily given him very many perimeters of how to raise funds and engage people. So I think his picture is bigger than just raising funds. It's engaging people, which sort of comes to your question. The only restriction we have given him and his team is, I've seen this done in numerous churches, and as an elder board, we've decided it's not okay for us to make demands from attendees, including members, of certain amounts of your personal budgets. In other words, as an elder board, we're not okay with requiring and expecting you to give certain dollar amounts towards this. This is a free will offering fundraising. It's going to rely a lot on Ryan Yotzi and his team to more or less sell this, the campaign to all attendees. But then obviously, from ministry perspective, I believe that the more you engage members and non-members in what the momentum and the potential of the church is, the more they're willing to give, which then goes into, again, surplus of budget goes into the building fund. Ryan, do you want to explain that a little bit?
I think you explained it pretty well, but yeah, I think, obviously right now we have a pretty good access of funds coming in, and I'm sure that's beyond just membership as well. So I think, getting a commitment from members as far as moving ahead, but I think as far as events that we see already, like fall gathering, things like that, we have a good support, I think, outside of just membership. So I think, yeah, that's all I have to add to that.
Supposed to use, but either way, I think the biggest thing for our team, one thing that we want to do is we have us 6 have some new ideas as far as new events go, but also I think when we come up with a new idea, it's important for us to involve other team members and hopefully church members or non-church members, regular attendees to get involved and get behind that specific event. I think that's one way of us hopefully being able to do that, and hopefully you guys want to step up and help. If you have there's a lot per event that goes on behind the scenes, and we need new ideas, fresh ideas. So I think that's going to be very important to try to get them involved in that.
Does that answer that question? All right, very good. Good questions. Anybody else?
For future expansion, I know
Yeah, good question there. There was actually, we put together, through this process earlier on, we put together a plan of how that would look, of adding a balcony over here, which would actually add 50 seats, which would put us in the upper 400 seats in here. Yeah, close to 500. I think the biggest thing we probably run into is parking. As you see, the parking is probably restricting us more than anything. But yeah, to answer your question directly, there has been conversation, can we expand this sanctuary and how would that look? And I forgot to mention, when I went through the budget, that's something that's still on the table. It's not really off the table. We're just, it's something that we could see how our budget falls with the new part. You know, right away we could potentially, but I think that's a separate conversation or approval that we would then look for.
I think from a ministry leadership perspective, once we outgrow the parking, you know, we'd have to look at several options as far as how to do ministry beyond that capacity, whether it's 2 services, whether it's, you know, doing an added service somewhere else or reaching a different community. Obviously, all of that would have to be prayed through a lot. But I think Ryan's right. I think once we're about 5 or 550 in this building, we'll just run out of parking beyond that for one service like that. Good question, though. Anybody else?
No, there hasn't been any numbers ran as far as, you know, electrical or anything like that, how much the increase would be. Is that what you?
Overhead or staff? Like utilities, staff?
Staff has been discussed, as far as just, you know, where we're going with staff as we speak, to make sure we accommodate for that in addition to what we'd be spending in overhead of the new building. But as far as the details, there hasn't been much conversation as far as electrical and things like that. I think, to be honest, once we get rid of our electric and some of our heating that's really old and ancient out there, we'll actually be more efficient in that way. But yeah, as far as staffing overhead has been discussed.
Does this include like new HVAC and everything from here as well, or just tied in?
Tied in.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Do you foresee any, of course, maybe this is off to a different, do you foresee like extra income from the gym? Like for like sports ministries or a wedding or a family reunion or, you know, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, and that's been in conversation some. So this is probably a deeper conversation than what we're going to get into now, Andre, am I correct? But there's been conversation even of, through this project, maybe the sound booth could move to upstairs, which would give a better wedding venue in here, because when we have, you know, a gym and a kitchen, all of that can invite more weddings. If you look at what venues are charging now for both weddings or even, like you said, sports things, there's definitely, we haven't put a number to that, but there will definitely be opportunity for added income on that level.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think, you know, when we run the numbers, we don't want to necessarily plan for that because we don't know to what depth we go. But I think it's definitely going to be, we can plan that there will be added income.
All good questions. Anybody else? All right, we're going to move into, again, I don't want to cut anybody off. So if you're thinking it and want to ask it, please don't be shy. But we're going to move into basically a standard procedure of making a decision on this, which is making a motion off of the proposal. And then after that motion is made and seconded, then we'll open it up for more conversation, which you can have regarding specifically finance, because that's the big thing that'll affect us. You know, the building, that vision, I hope you put the questions out there you have. I know the building team put a lot of thought and process behind Tecton already of this, but I'm sure they welcome your input. But I think now in going to making the decision, what's heavy on our minds is the finance part of this. So Joe is the chairperson of the advisory council. For all of you that are familiar with our structure of leadership here in the church, we have the elder board and then the advisory council as sort of the logistics and finance structure of the church. And so, Joe, I'm going to let you present the proposal, which is basically what Ryan made in finance ways. The proposal that the advisory council wants to present, and then upon that proposal, I'll ask for a motion. So, Joe, if you don't have a mic, you can come up here and grab this one, and you can just, give this proposal from the council.
Well, as an advisory council, I don't have a whole lot to add to it, but as an advisory council, the way this was presented, the advisory council has agreed to move forward with the proposal as Ryan presented it. So I don't have a whole lot more to share on that. But
Yeah, as I said, Joe's the chairperson of our council, and that council consists of 12 people of different ministry leads, including the elder board and the pastoral team. So Joe did a really good job here about a month ago of walking through all of these discussions in the council. So thank you, Joe. So Joe is giving that proposal. So I would entertain a motion if somebody wants to motion. And again, we're working through standard meeting procedure at this point. And Sean to my left here is taking the minutes on this. So if someone would like to make a motion to move forward as presented, the proposal of the 40% down according to the budget, moving forward with the building as presented, I would entertain that motion. All right, Joanna made the motion to move forward with that, and I do need a second before we discuss. So can somebody second that? All right, thank you. Eric seconded it. So thank you, Joanna, for the motion, and Eric for a second. Some conversation. That finance proposal is what we would be voting on, and I know this is a big deal, guys, and I'll just say this as a senior pastor. There's a lot of this that I'm concerned about because when we put ourselves in a financial responsibility, I have a lot of concern for that of what kind of load that puts on the church and the pressure that puts on the church. However, I will say that I'm very comfortable with what the council and the finance team has proposed. So I do believe that it makes a lot of sense. So again, I'll just say as pastor, I'm all in. I feel like this is a great idea. But I'll welcome your input. Is there any conversation, any concern, anything you would like to discuss? Because based on this decision, we would move forward with this plan. So if we would all agree to move forward today on a vote, and I know some of you may be thinking, well, there's obviously a lot of members that aren't here. We feel badly that there's members maybe that aren't being put a vote in, but we also feel like under normal structure, we have to somehow make a decision. So based on, there was one of the members here that asked me if he could vote as a text because he can't be here and he's watching the streaming. So we would count his vote yes or no as well when we do this vote. But again, I'm just putting it out there as seriousness. You know, I'm excited about this. I can tell the building team is. I will promise you the ministry leaders are very excited about the potential ministry. But it is a commitment, and it's a commitment that all of us as a church bear. So based on this decision, we will either move forward or not. Now, is that making it serious enough? If it is, any input, any questions? The answer is no. We did have, when we did the, and Lester, you might need to help me with numbers because I don't think the current elder board was involved then, but when we did the auditorium here, I think our loan was of $1 million, maybe? It wasn't that, maybe 600, between 600 and $1 million somewhere? I don't know. I don't know if I recall. Who was treasurer back then? Was Diane? Around six. Thank you, Nate. So when we did the auditorium here, we went a little bit through the same process. Now, I think we've learned a lot through that process, which we're trying to correct in the way we're structuring this. But yeah, our loan was around $650, Nate thinks, and that's been paid off, I think. Lori, where are you? As of 2 years ago? Maybe a year and a half ago? About a year and a half ago, and we moved into this building in the auditorium, I think it was in 2015, either 15 or 16. So to give you a little bit of history of that. But currently, no outstanding debt. Any other questions? Alan. Correct. The vote we are doing on was a motion that was made on the finance plan that Ryan presented based on the proposal from the council with Joe. And that would be at the 40% cash, then it's time to do demo. Now, how all that planning works, Ryan, I'll let you explain a little bit of that, can I? The planning of how that actually works. I think the way I understand Ryan would work with Ryan Yotzi, and based on their progress on that campaign, they would have to work with the timing to give Weaver the go-ahead based on scheduled funds coming in. Is that correct, Ryan?
Because the big thing with that is the timing that Bruce mentioned. You know, once we move ahead with this, we gotta be a lot of communication on where we're at, because the timing, it takes a while. I mean, once we say yes, and once we'd be in a building, it's a minimum of 16 months. And Weaver Commercial had mentioned that they don't want to be starting in the winter time, or with a big demo project like this, our window is small. So they want to be in the summertime. So all of that will need to be taken into account once we kind of, if we do move ahead, that we say yes, we need to kind of time it and at least go in faith on some of it. There is options if we would say yes to Weaver Commercial, and then we say 5 months down the road we don't have the funds yet, as we anticipated, we could put the brakes on, and they would just charge us time and material up to that point. But we would have to, once they order the building, then you have to pay for the building. So we'd have a little window here that we could gauge it at least. Absolutely, yeah, no problem. They mentioned that we would only miss maybe 2 or 3 times of church here. They felt like if we can use the entrance off of 62 here, and they can close this off and demo and keep us under power in here, we could keep going just like normal. Now there'd be, like I said, 2 or 3 times that we may have to be at the park, or set up somewhere else, or Lester's Field. That's a really good question there, because we'd be pretty limited on space. I would think we'd have to work through some of that, yeah. Use what we have back here, or figure something out, yeah. That's something we'd have to talk about. The restrooms, we'd probably have to get some additional, because we would only have the back here. If this is demoed up here, there'd be nothing out front here. Parking, right. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there would be a little limitations on that, because the front's going to be being used. But I believe we did talk a little bit about that with them. They didn't think that they'd be taking up half the parking lot. But yeah, they obviously need a space to put the building when the building comes. There's going to be sometimes that it takes more space and other times it doesn't. So yeah, we'd have to work through that too. But as far as just using the building, that was our biggest concern. Can we continue to use the building and not needing to move somewhere for 6 months? And that is not the case. We won't have to do that. On a Sunday morning. Yeah.
Are you talking about a Sunday morning? No, it will definitely affect kids ministries, junior youth specifically, because currently they're inhabiting the house that'll get torn away. We haven't made decisions on that. That's more of a ministry leader thing, coming back to the elder board and saying, this is what we need. Where can we find the room? So that's an answer to your question as well, Chris. That'll be a question yet to answer. Whether some of that goes off-site, whether we can do something as simple as a tent, I don't know. We'd have to look at those. I don't know if I quite understood that question. Dewey, can you help me out with that? So I'll divert over to the building team. The question is, if we do sporting events, is there room for fans, bleachers, or such?
Not bleachers, but Mike, do you remember how much was around the gym? Was it like 4 or 5 feet on the sides and maybe a little bit more on the ends? Enough to put chairs like around the outside. Am I right? Yeah. But there's not enough room to put a bunch of bleachers.
Bruce, was there thought of windows up in those overhead rooms? See, there'll be rooms on the second story looking out over the gym as well that maybe you could, I don't know.
No, I don't think we had talked about putting windows in there.
Good thought. I think those, as we collectively move forward, those kind of thought processes need to be weighed heavily by the team. So that's definitely a good thought, for sure.
We did, just so you know, we did talk to them a little bit about space because that was a concern along the sidelines. But we're very limited on our width out front as far as either cutting into the parking lot, which we don't want to do, and the property line out back. So we squeezed in, we felt as much as we could to at least get, the well as well. But the width of the gym would be the biggest thing.
Nothing. No, I think we're going to lose maybe 2 or 3 car parking spots over here where we do the carport. But I think, the center pole will get moved, and I'm sure they'll come underground. And that hill over here, I think we could potentially gain a few spots over on this side where the center pole is now. But no, we're not losing any parking along the front of the building.
I don't want to cut anybody short, but again, I want to make sure we know what we're voting for. The motion was made. Yeah, if you have questions on there on the gym. The motion was made and seconded to move forward with the financial plan. So I don't want to cut you short, but I also don't want to drag you out if you're sitting here and thinking, okay, we're done with this conversation. So,
one more thing,
questions?
To Anson's point, now that I'm looking at it, the gym will actually, so there won't be no porch here. It'll be off 62 further. So if you do come and you park over here now, you will have a little bit more room over on this side to park here. It'll be a little bit safer for you to turn and to get out on the road. Because we won't have that extra, however wide that porch is, 6 feet or whatever. So there'll be not extra parking spots over here, but it'll be a little bit more room.
Any other questions? If there's no questions, I'm taking that as a sign that we're ready to move forward in a vote. So I'll give it another quick opportunity for questions. There also may be a porch on the outside of the upstairs of the gym that you could grill lots of chicken. And Nate, I really appreciate that. I just wanted to comment too. I believe Bruce's team and Ryan as the elder liaison with that team, I believe you guys started taking effect the end of 22. Was that correct? Or maybe the beginning of 23? So to your point, yeah, these guys have put a lot of, I don't know how many meetings you've had with Tecton, but I know there's been a lot of them. So I appreciate that, Nate. From their part of it, these guys have put a lot into it already for sure. And even from a finance part, I know Ryan Hirschberger has done a lot in collecting all this data that he's worked with Ray and Associates to put this proposal together. So I know these guys, other than the elder board, has put a lot of, and as an elder board, again, we've been trying to be intentional that this doesn't define us. So as an elder board, again, we want to facilitate, oversee teams, but as an elder board, we want to keep working with the pastoral team to do ministry and let the teams move forward with all the stuff they can.
Andre, could we go to the third slide on the proposal?
In the back?
We're not doing anything back here in the corner. So I guess potentially, they didn't tell me to build a playground yet too, so I don't. But there would be, because everything is up the front, up that way. So nothing really will change, like in this concrete corner back here, or back where the van sits, or.
I think Dewey, in answer to your question, we have, three over there, three of the building team along with Ryan. We have four great minds on the building team. So if we decide we want something as a church, we're just going to tell them to figure it out, make it happen.
We would also be gaining space over here, obviously, the trade-off for parking potentially. Like I said, there's a wall being built out the back, retaining wall potentially that would gain us parking, but that would be outside of that gym there could be an area as well. But anyhow, the comment I just wanted to make is on, I know when we look at what it costs a building per month on a loan, the number 12,000 is a lot. But I just want to say that, when we looked at this, our church is getting a lot of funds in. And I just want to assure you that we want it to stay pretty far away from the 26,000. We don't want to be that tight. So just so everyone's aware that, when we looked at that 12,000 per month, we wanted to stay for sure within that, 23% of our offerings that we've been getting. That's fairly consistent. And obviously the excess funds from the budget using those two numbers, not relying on a church auction necessarily or additional funds that just come in randomly. We did not want to tie that into our cash flow. So making sure that we're safe on that end.
I just want to note this too, in case the question's out there. When speaking of what we're about to vote on is moving forward with 40% down. Something to consider based on that decision of, starting demolition at 40% down. If Yutzi and his team continues to do, their job well at raising funds, by the time that building loan would actually close, which a loan closes when the building process is done, like Bruce said, is 8 months into it. So there's a good chance we'd be up to 50% at that point, or at least 45. So that was all in that conversation with the council of, hanging our hat on having 40% to start the demolition, that by the time the loan closes at the end of the renovation, there'll obviously be more cash in the bank. We should definitely be praying. Although that'd be a pretty nice house for Zone United's pastoral house too. No, I'm just kidding. That's been in a lot of conversation. Matter of fact, before that house was built, that was in conversation. But the landowner at that point wasn't very interested. So never say never. But I think at this point, that would probably be a far cry to expect that to come up for availability for purchase. But we'd never say never. No, not recently. I've been in contact with him earlier on, but as of the last year or two, no conversation. Have any of you guys?
No, but we've. Yeah, right. But we did
So Bruce has been in contact, just not offering them money for it. Prepping. Oh, he was here in the church last week? Okay. I know he's been in and out a few times, but I don't remember seeing him recently. All right. Again, when questions end, I'm taking for granted you're ready to move forward with the vote. As I noted, we're simply going to do this in standard procedure of moving forward with this decision with the motion made and seconded. We felt like as an elder board, we simply want to do this as streamlined as we can. I think it would be appropriate that we bow our heads so there's not intimidation factor of how to vote. And then the elder board will be responsible to count those votes. So does anyone not feel comfortable in moving forward with this vote? Do you still have a question that you need answered? Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. Can you do that? Can we all bow our heads for prayer? Lord Jesus, you know the future. God, you know where you want to lead us as Berean Community Church. You know the heavy call to ministry that you poured into so many hearts here. And as leaders, God, the responsibility you've given us, we want to follow your passion, your will, and do ministry. And God, I know that the discernment here is in the leadership, in the elder board, in the council, in the building committee, that we feel like this opportunity to have a tool to do more ministry is directly from you. But God, I pray that you would work in our hearts, every one of us here, to understand what this looks like and to hear you speak to us. Show us clearly through a vote here with members of Berean that I know have been entrusted with your Holy Spirit and with your passion. God, we don't look at this lightly, but I also know, God, that you've called us to have faith, to believe in you, and to move forward as you lead us and show us. So, God, I pray that you lead us very clearly here today as a group, as a family here at the Church of Berean Community Church. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Before we vote, one more time for questions. Sounds like an auction. I don't mean it that way. I just want to make sure that you have opportune times if you're feeling cautious. I want you to be, yes. So I'll let Ryan Hirschberger speak in that a little bit. I'll just say from an elder board perspective, we feel like based on the decision we make here today, we want to hold true to. So as an elder board overseeing all of the teams, we want to stay true to this decision. The timing of that, the teams are going to have to work with. So Ryan, did you understand the question?
So, and I'm assuming you're talking about kind of the timing of yes to the building, or you know, if we would, yeah. Yeah, and I think we're all going in here pretty optimistic. You know, I think if we would get a yes today, we would tell Weaver Commercial to move ahead, or to, I say move ahead what our plan is with the 40% down. But we would want them, like Bruce said, they would need 6 months to order the building. So they said they would pencil us in for even potentially by the fall of next year. And we could then go and see how our fundraising is going by the beginning of the year, and we could gauge. You know, if we're making good progress, we would probably stay on there and then have some conversation about hitting the yes button on the building. But up to that point, we would kind of hold still, but still be on their radar for next year. And then if, because the big thing is like we said, if we miss that next year window, it would then go a whole year pretty much until you get into the summer of 25 by the time they renovate and want to get the project done. So does that answer it?
Ryan Yotzi, just in quick question to that. Maybe you said this and I missed it, but am I correct in assuming that your goal was at this point with your team to be able to have these funds by the fall of next year? Is that what I overheard you, or is that what you're feeling?
Well, I think, of course, I think that's all our goal is to do it as quickly as possible. It's kind of hard to know exactly. We really haven't had the opportunity to go out there and propose anything or really set anything in motion yet until after this meeting. I think it'll be easier to say that, but I would say for me, quicker the better. I want to, yeah.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, I think Ryan Yotzi has been careful that he doesn't put his team before the cart before the horse, because obviously he couldn't push forward with his team until the decision's made to go ahead. But based on that, we'll rely a lot on him of what he looks at forecast can be. Okay, anybody else? Good questions. Again, what I'm going to ask you to do is all bow your heads. And we're gonna take this vote by raising hands. The elder board here is going to count the vote. So with bowed heads, and again with a responsible mind and heart, hearing the Holy Spirit lead us, we're asking all of you that would vote yes to move forward with this proposal of 40% down with the building plan. Would you please raise your hand? And it may take us a little bit of time to count, so if you would have some patience. All right, you can lower your hands. I hope you didn't get arm muscles built up there. Apologize for that delay. All right, and keep your heads bowed if you would. If you are here today and you would like to vote no to this proposal, would you do the same sign? Please raise your hand if you would like to vote no to this proposal. All right, thank you. All right, we would like to just, we're going to present it this way. We've only had a few that have questions that would want to rethink moving forward. So we'll be speaking to you guys. It's only a few. So we do feel like the percentages we wanted, we've exceeded. As an elder board, we had agreed we need a full 90% to move forward, and we're beyond that quite a bit. So I just want you to know if you voted no, don't feel like your voice isn't heard. We want to speak to you and walk through this. But based on the support we have, we do feel a strong yes to move forward with this. Thank you for your time here this afternoon. You have, I don't know if you understand as an elder board how much we appreciate your support of being here. And this is a team effort. It's a full church. So thank you. I think with that thought, we're dismissed. I appreciate you being here. And thank you again. May God bless each of you.